Hi, everyone. This is Nasrin Azari, and I'm excited to be with you today. Today, I am going to talk to you about the case for going digital, and in particular, the case for going digital for a NDT organization. What I'm going to argue today is that having a digitalized business will enable you as an NDT company to be able to perform more NDT, provide safer NDT, and better NDT. So in terms of an agenda for today, I'm going to walk through what I mean when I say go digital. So it's really about digitalization. I'll start with some of the reasons that people give for not going digital and what some of the hesitations you might have, you might be feeling yourself, or you might be hearing from your coworkers or your management or your employees on, hey, I don't think this is right for us. That will lead into some of the biggest challenges that folks have and traps that lead to failure or not being as successful as you hope. And then we'll move into talking through the process and sort of what are the things that are important and the steps that you would follow to go digital from a high level. And then we'll talk through the benefits of what you'll get out of a digitalization effort. And then I'll relate this to NDE 4.0 because I see digitalization as a very important step to NDE 4.0. Quick summary, and then we'll leave it there. And I hope you enjoy it. Thank you. All right, so technically, going digital really means to replace analog data elements, manual or paper-based processes with digital versions or automating processes. It also can refer to the concept of improving business operations generally through the use of software applications. Typically, when you go digital, you create a digital process for one section of your business, and then you might go digital with another section of your business, and sometimes you might not digitalize other parts of your business at all. But typically you will kind of go one step at a time and then integrating or pieces of your organization together as it makes sense and as you move forward. And there's this kind of maturity ladder that you'll climb as you continue to incorporate more advanced digitalization into your organization. And some of you, depending on where you are, you may be what you consider a digital beginner, or you may be pretty advanced and pretty far along. And so, there's always things to gain. I always talk about digitalization as being a dynamic thing. It's a process. It's not really something that has an end and you can say, hey, Kate, okay, hey, we're completely digitalized. It's going to change, going forward. There's always going to be additional aspects of digitalization to consider. So generally, you focus on the basics first, digitalizing your existing processes, and then thinking about how you can add advanced technologies and advanced functionality to make those processes better as it makes sense for you and your company. So starting off with some of the reasons that you hear not to go digital, I'm going to walk through those concerns one at a time, and then how you might address those concerns, how you might respond to those, how you might think about that to help you kind of put it in context to deal with it. So the first one, very common, my team is comfortable with their existing processes. They know how to do their job. They do it really well. The current system isn't broken. Why should I change? And the answer, what I would say there is that digitalization is taking over the NDT world, and it's going to continue to do that because of the benefits. And we're going to get through those later, but the benefits, it's kind of like, why should I carry a mobile phone 15 years ago when they were just coming out? Well, practically everybody has a mobile phone today, and you think about, like, can I even, if I start my day and I leave my house without my mobile phone, I turn around and I come right back for it, right? So it's kind of a way of life. Well, I see that digitalization is going to be that for the NDT industry, and so it's important for you to stay competitive and relevant. And if you want to do that, you're going to have to go digital at some point and embrace it. We're too busy to change the way we do things today. We don't have time for this. It's going to be a huge effort, and we don't have time for it. So I will say that digitalization does take time, and typically it takes longer than you think, actually. So you can break digitalization up into stages. I highly recommend that you do that, but you definitely need to be committed to the time that it takes and allocate time for the effort before you embark on the effort. The third concern, digital tools are really expensive and complicated to set up, and we don't have the expertise, and I don't have the money to spend. So what I would say here is that you definitely need to do a cost benefit analysis. You need to understand the benefits that you're going to achieve, and you really need to put a cost to that. So understanding how much time it takes for you to perform your manual processes. And if you had a digital process, what would that, how much time would it take you to do that? What does that save you from a dollar perspective? You would be probably blown away, thinking, getting yourself ahead 2 years after your digitalization process, you'd probably be blown away by how much more efficient you are. So there's the efficiency gains. In terms of costly setup, my company, Floodlight Software, does a digitalization effort for companies, and I think we're very cost effective. And we're not the only solution out there. There's quite a few options and ways for you to go about it that don't have to be a huge upfront cost, but definitely the benefits are going to far outweigh the expense. So it's just important for you to dig in and do that cost benefit analysis before you get started so that you're comfortable with it, and then take the plunge. Concerns about security risks of digital and data and processes, well, certainly you need to protect your data. And there's a lot of ways to do that. There's a reason that there's so many cybersecurity companies and tools out there, because people need to go digital. They want to go digital. They recognize the benefits of the effort. And by doing that, they're creating these massive databases of digital information. And, they don't want that to get out into the wrong hands. And that's why companies exist, to protect your data. So security tools exist. Consider it as just kind of a part of this process. It's definitely a risk, but there's risks with not going digital too. And this is just one of those things that you just need to consider, that it's part of the process and it needs to be addressed. And you just kind of you do it. There's lots of options to secure your data and protect yourself. No support from upper management. So you have this goal. I want to go digital. I've got a great plan, but my upper management just doesn't seem to think it's important. They seem to think that the way we're doing business today is great, and it's not broken and it doesn't need to be fixed. So I don't think I should move forward. And I will say that if you need support from upper management, meaning that you're sort of not in control of a division, that you can sort of collectively go about this process all on your own, and you really need either financial support or authority to go about what you're wanting to embark on. If you need that support from upper management, you need to get it. Support and commitment for a digitalization effort really needs to be throughout the organization that's going about the effort. And so that, to me, is really, really critical. And I would say if you don't have that support, then you need to work on that support and sell that to whoever needs to be sold before you embark on the effort. And then alternatively, you might be getting internal resistance from staff or employees or folks that might be looking to have to change the way they do things because of a digitalization effort. And in that case, what I would say is, instead of sort of pushing it on them and saying, look, this is going to be a great thing for you, jump on board. What's wrong with you? This is how we're going to do things. Think about where that's coming from. It's typically a fear of getting lost. It's a fear of losing their job, or fear of failure, or fear of not being able to contribute to the effort. So coming up with a way to alleviate those fears is your responsibility if you're leading an effort in digitalization. So that kind of leads into, what are some of the things that lead to failure? Well, first of all, unclear goals. Going digital does represent a really big change across your organization, and it should be considered strategically and carefully planned, meaning you should have very, very clear goals. You should understand the benefits that you expect to achieve, and you need to communicate those consistently to your entire team and make them aware of how they are contributing and how they are participating in the effort and why they are important and how everything all fits together and where you expect to go. Secondly, too much focus on technology. So the technology is certainly a primary focus of digitalization, but it's also tends to be the easiest part, meaning that it's the most predictable part. So incorporating technology is relatively predictable. Like, if I'm providing you a tool, I can tell you how to get it installed and how to get it running and how to go about the process of incorporating it into your environment. The challenge, the unpredictability comes with your people, really. And so that's where we need to put focus, is understanding that it's a change in the way we do business. It's a change of processes, and it's a change in culture of how we look at how we're doing our work. That's really important to focus on as well. Trying to do too much too quickly, I always recommend that people start off, bite off a small chunk first and be successful in a small way, and then expand outwards from there. And then expect that there are going to be setbacks. Don't let that derail you from the process. Think of them as learning opportunities and plan for that. Don't, assume that there are going to be some bumps in the road as you go through this process, and that will allow you to stay positive and end up in a much better place. All right, so now we're kind of in the chunk of, I've made the decision, I've got the support I need, how do I make it happen? So first of all, identify concrete goals, think about your benefits. What are you going to achieve? Potentially these achievements will be in stages, and clearly communicate that to the folks that will be involved. And then commit the entire organization from top to bottom to the effort. Everybody needs to understand what their part of it is. Engage, make sure you allay any fears, make sure you have conversations about what it means to everybody, and get everybody committed. Some of the items that I've bolded on this list are things that I'm going to go into a little bit more detail on, because I think they're important enough to spend a little bit more time on. You can put incentives in place for milestones along the way to encourage people to engage in behaviors that might initially be uncomfortable or difficult for them. Definitely create a realistic timeline. Assume it's going to take a lot longer than you think, and give yourself time to be successful. Start with creating a data model of, sort of, we talk about digitalization. It's about data, and it's about processes. And I like to think about the data first, and then your processes, which basically has to do with creating, manipulating, and moving data from place to place. And then finally, digitalize your processes one at a time, or one group at a time, sort of one chunk, one manageable chunk at a time. So I want to spend a little bit of time on some of these items. Commitment is one of them. So I believe it must come from the top and filter downstream, but you still need to get everybody's engagement and everybody involved. Share a vision of what things look like when you achieve success, or when you achieve a milestone. What does that look like? What does that do for you? How does that benefit your customers? How does it benefit your employees? And how does it benefit the company as a whole? And then again, and make sure everybody understands their part in this vision, how they're contributing to your success, and how that will help them in the long run as well. So a digitalization effort is inherently an innovation effort. It's a new way of doing things. Encourage people to share their ideas, encourage them to share their concerns, create brainstorming sessions, creating an innovative culture around changing how you do business, or how you're doing business, and how you're performing your work is new for everybody. And you can teach and you can learn, and part of that, creating that learning and innovative experience, is not discouraging risk taking. So don't punish folks for small mistakes, or coming up with ideas that may not be popular, or that you may not agree with. Encourage people to bring those ideas to you, because you kind of never know what you could achieve. Again, and similarly, creating a feedback loop to share experiences, especially from the bottom up, is really important, because as you go through this effort, you are going to be learning, and you want to make sure you take advantage of all that learning. And sometimes it's really easy to communicate from the top down, and it can be really difficult, and people may be hesitant to communicate on the way up, especially if they feel like it's a negative message. So make sure to encourage and create a really positive environment for getting feedback, because it is a learning experience. And the more you understand how things are actually going, the more successful the effort will be. User experience. So when we talk about digitalization, think of it as a process change. I like to make sure people understand that anytime you incorporate technology into a business, it's to create a process change for the better, a process improvement, I should say. And what that really, your folks that are performing work, that are performing processes that are going to be digitalized or digitalized further than they are today, the end result should be that the process is better. And in a lot of cases, that means it should be easier than before. I should be performing the work with either the same or less effort than before, and getting the same or better results than before. So that should stay a top priority. And user interface is a huge component of that. And of course, measure improvements and celebrate every success as it comes your way, because that helps to encourage people to continue moving forward. Okay, so another component I wanted to talk a little bit more about was data. So when you think about digitalization, it really is about data, and data is about what's important to you and your business. And that can be different from your business to somebody else's business. So to really think about what data is important to you, and what the data elements are involved in that information, and how they relate to each other. And that's really how you design your data model and how you build your database. And it's a really creative process. It can be really fun. You're considering, all of your data points, how they get created, how they change over time, how they transform from one piece to another. And that will help you create a data model that is flexible enough that it will grow with you in the future. So a lot of times we tend to start with a very static data model, and then end up having to redo it a couple years down the road. And that might happen. It's still worth the effort to do it, but really spend some time thinking about what's important to your company and how you might create a data model. And if it seems like a difficult effort, definitely get some help, and somebody that's used to doing this kind of thing can really be helpful in this effort. The second thing I wanted to talk a little bit more detail about are processes, and what does a process analysis mean? What do I do? So you're looking at a diagram that is typically called a swim lane diagram, because it sort of looks like a swimming pool with different lanes and different swimmers in each lane. And basically, each lane in the swim lane diagram represents a role in your company, or an individual, or a department. And the activities, the boxes, and the diamonds, and the different shapes that go into each swim lane represent tasks or decisions or data that is owned or performed by that particular role. And then you'll see that there's arrows that go between different swim lanes, meaning that data crosses boundaries of different departments or individuals or roles. And that's really what a process diagram is. That I perform a particular task for myself, and then I transfer data to somebody else who makes a decision, and then that may cause somebody else to do a piece of work, or it might cause me to redo what I was doing. And so that's kind of this process that you want to map out. When you build a process diagram for yourself, it's going to be a lot more complicated than this. You're going to probably have 30 pages of diagrams that are 5 times more complicated than this simple one shown on the screen. And it's going to involve how your data gets transferred back and forth, and what happens to that data, your operations, your processes, your dependencies, the people that do the work. And all that comes into play when sort of mapping out your processes. And I would recommend you start at a high level and then dig in deeper as you go further through the analysis process. As you go through this, you'll see your sort of natural divisions between different different process components. And that's where you can sort of chunk them up, prioritize between them, so you know sort of where to start with your digitalization effort. What's the most important thing to start with? Okay, so let's move on to talking about the benefits and really sort of the drivers around why you're going to digitalize in the first place, right? Um, and as I mentioned at the beginning, I feel like digitalization benefits for NDT fall into those three categories: being able to do more, being able to do safer, and being able to do better. So digitalization as a whole should enable you and your organization to do faster work. And if you can do faster work, then you can perform more in any given time frame. And what that will end up doing is creating more NDT, which drives to a safer world because more equipment is being tested more frequently with more data and more results. Safer NDT. So incorporating digitalization allows you to replace manual processes, manual tasks with robots, drones, digital tool sets that take some of the risk, the human risk out of the equation. Automating processes allows for a more consistent response. All of this contributes in resulting in a safer environment for your employees, your testers, your customers, folks that live around assets that need to be tested on a regular basis, resulting in fewer accidents. And this is, kind of the key behind our entire industry. Is what we're trying to do is lessen the number of accidents that happen so that the world is a safer place. And then finally, digitalization should enable you to get greater accuracy in your testing procedures, more consistency, more data points. If you can incorporate sensors and take that data into consideration, this all leads to being able to be more proactive as an organization and as an entire industry. And to me, this is sort of the holy grail for NDT, is becoming anticipating failures instead of and that is really what we do, but being sort of on the leading edge of asset management as a whole and asset integrity management. All right, so I want to spend my last couple of minutes here talking about digitalization and how it relates to NDE 4.0. So I see digitalization as this concept of creating what I call a digital foundation. It's all about digitalizing your data and your processes and creating these digital workflows for you so that you've got this basis for incorporating machine learning, artificial intelligence, being able to create digital twins, to represent the assets that you're testing, or your equipment that you're using to test your machines, and anticipate what could happen down the road with particular assets. It's an incredible jump. And there's a lot of things that come into play, but the first step is really this digitalization step, this digital foundation. And then once you've gotten there, then you can incorporate digital testing tools, AI, digital twins, IoT, things like that. Really, I feel like the NDT industry is going to be completely transformed by these technologies over the next 5 years. All right, so in summary, I feel like digitalization is a must. It really is, it's where the industry is going, and it's not a question of why anymore. It's a question of how and when am I going to embark on this journey. But you certainly need to be ready and committed. Recognize it's going to take time. It's not going to be a smooth sailing journey from start to finish. It is best to stage your digitalization effort into multiple phases that will help you be more successful. Certainly, we think of this trifecta, people, process, technology. A lot of times we think of digitalization as being focused on technology first, and then processes, and then, okay, maybe people. People are really a really important part of this effort. The people factors, the cultural factors, all of that is really just as critical as the technology and the process changes. And then finally, I would say, if this is an intimidating effort, please, there's tons of folks out there, consultants that this is what they do for a living, is help people through this process. So definitely seek help if it seems intimidating to you. So that's all I have. I really appreciate you listening today and spending time with me. Here's my contact information if you're interested in anything I had to say today, or just kind of want to brainstorm with me a little bit. I'm happy to chat with you. I look forward to it. This is something I really, really enjoy. So thank you so much. Take care. Bye.